Good morning. Well, maybe morning, maybe not morning for you. I don't know. It's about to turn 12 p.m. I'm in Atlanta right now. So we're really glad that you're on today. And if you haven't done this, there's going to be a link in the chat for our webinar prep form. It's going to just kind of prepare your mind to take what we're talking about and be able to apply it potentially as we're talking through it. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and fill that out for us. That would be fantastic. In addition, if you would go to the chat and in the drop down, select everyone, and then tell us where you are calling from or where you minister. Uh, and I think is that what we usually, what organization you serve with would be great. So, and Julie, you're in Arizona
I am. I am
still.
putting it in the chat right now.
Oh, look at you following instructions.
I
I don't even do
am.
that.
I listen well.
All right, we got so many different people.
Well,
Somebody in Northern
Northern
Iraq
Iraq.
in working in Europe with, hold on, it's
Oh
coming.
man, it's coming in fast.
Well, I know, right? Northern Iraq.
Oh,
Glad to have
awesome,
you
guys.
there. Doing so good. If you're just now getting on the call, would you go to the chat and in the drop down, select everyone and tell us where you are calling from and what organization you're with? Scott, I got your message about the webinar link. I'm glad you could pop on.
Hey,
Um,
someone in Phoenix. Hello, we're neighbors.
yeah. Okay, Jim, it says boring, comma, Oregon. And I was like, what's boring? Like, are we going to be boring? Are you
Ching.
boring? Is your ministry boring? I'm sure it's not. Um,
Oh, someone's working at Grace International with my daughter-in-law.
what?
Grace International, Chiang Mai.
I
Whoop
didn't
whoop.
know. Um, I didn't know that was that your daughter-in-law was there.
Yeah,
That's cool. So many neat places
I know.
represented right now. Um, I'm Christina. I'm from Oklahoma, Oklahoma City. I haven't lived there since I was 18. I now live in Nashville, Tennessee. But
Wichita, that's not far from Kansas City.
I know. Let's see. Is anybody in London or Barcelona? I'm doubting anyone's from is in Malta. Those are the three places that I'm going to. Leah, you're from Nashville. What organization are you serving with? Oh, you're from Nashville or you live in Nashville? I've been there for 26 years.
I'm from the
Okay,
Associates.
got it. From Nashville. I lived in Donaldson for a very long time, a couple decades, and now I live downtown. So I really love it. Grew up in Hendersonville. Nice.
Brian.
All right, Shelly, I'm
Hi,
so glad you
Brian.
got to join us. I need to shoot you an email because we now have three, I guess everyone may want to know this. We have three Spanish speaking coaches now, so we can coach missionaries who don't speak any English and they just speak Spanish. Would love for you to get in touch with me if that's helpful for you or your team. Would be glad to talk about that. Hopefully, we'll be sending out some emails about that soon, but I want to make sure that everyone's aware. Let's see. Man, they are coming in
This
droves. If
is
you're just now
great.
getting on, please go to Jessica, you just shared that with hosts and panelists.
Oh, sorry.
Um, if you are just hopping on, go to chat and go to the drop down, select everyone, and um, yeah, select everyone. And then what am I trying to say? I just saw that message. And tell us where you're calling from or where you serve or both and what organization you're with. Um, James, let's not do a transcript. Let's see. You liked recording, so as soon as you can type stop. Okay. I'll type it.
I hope everybody else is looking at this chat. This is amazing
Yeah.
to see how many people you might be seeing friends that are somewhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Tempe, Arizona. I'm just
And
temporarily
honestly,
here in Arizona.
And I love to see organizations that I don't normally see, which is, it's
Yeah.
just really fun. It's really fun. Sherry, if you want to select everyone, and Stuart, select everyone instead of hosts and panelists in the drop down so everyone can see where you're from, that'd be fantastic. Really great. Man. Seward, Nebraska, never heard of it. I'm sure
I've
it's
been there.
amazing.
I've been
Why?
there. They have a good parade.
Okay, I don't know where Valencia, Spain is, but I'm going to Barcelona next week, or yeah, the end of next week. So,
It's great.
Michael, if you want to switch to everyone instead of hosts and panelists, that'd be great. Thanks, Sherry, for doing that. Time to revive. Yeah, so glad to have you on this call. Fantastic. Now, Jessica's going to put a link in the chat, and it's actually our webinar prep form. If you haven't filled that out yet, please do that right now. It's just going to help you think through a couple of things so that way you can like easily contextualize as we're going through the webinar. And maybe you can get some ideas going immediately instead of having to come back to it and figure out how you want to apply. So if you would do that, that'd be really wonderful. We have over 100 people on this webinar right now, and I'm very excited about it. I have a couple of really cool things to share with you. I'm going to be sharing a pretty complex AI prompt for you to use to develop some communication. So I'm excited to share that with everyone. Actually, I didn't plan this, but it's a great reason to stay to the end of the webinar because it's at the very end. So if you want that AI prompt, just stay till the end. Um,
Good job.
yeah, right. Let's see, it's 12:05. This is a webinar we've never done before, so I'm not sure how long it's going to take. So I'd like to get started just to make sure we have time for questions at the end. Um, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Russell. I'm the founder of Tailored. Hosting with me today is one of our coaches, Julie, who is joining us from Phoenix. She lives in Minnesota, but joining us from Phoenix. And behind the scenes is Jessica. She's our operations director, and she's managing the chat and the Q&A. And she is calling in from Kansas City. So we're excited to be with you and looking forward to the next hour where we're going to talk about how to intentionally expand your network. And throughout the webinar, we do want to hear from you. In your Zoom window, you should see a chat button. And this is where you can put any comments that you want to share throughout the call and where we're going to put comments and information as well. So just make sure to hit that drop down arrow in the blue bubble and select everyone so that everyone is able to see your comment. In addition, you should see a button that says Q&A. Is that in there, Jessica? Yes. You should see Q&A. This is where we want you to put your questions. Don't put questions in the chat. They could get lost to us. Put questions in the Q&A. Okay. And we're going to Jessica will either respond by sending you a message back, but most likely we'll answer it live so that everyone can hear. Fundraising, and this is what we truly believe, fundraising isn't an obstacle to ministry, fundraising is ministry, which means partnership development is not only a necessary part of your ministry, it's a valuable part of your ministry. So today we want to share ways to intentionally grow and communicate with your network by answering the following questions. How is partnership development ministry? Why do I want new contacts? Where do I find new contacts? And what do I do with new contacts? So if you've been a missionary for any length of time, or you've been to most any fundraising training for missionaries, I'm sure you've heard this principle. And some here today may think of it as more of just a saying that fundraising is ministry than a reality. And while others may just need a fresh reminder of what ministry looks like in the context of partnership development. So I want to take a look first at a traditional model of fundraising. And there are three components in ministry represented by three circles. The first is the missionary, which represents you. Next is impact. And in the context of Christian ministry, we define impact as the difference made in people's lives because of the gospel. And it's what God is doing in big or small ways to transform people's lives. Okay. Julie, could you copy and paste that into the chat for me?
Yep.
The missionary on the front lines is central to this fundraising model and truly wants to see impact. But recognizing their need for help, they ask potential supporters, God has called me to do this great thing. Will you support my ministry? And the supporter in this model represents the people you've asked to come alongside in your ministry. And there are a lot of limiting factors here. To start, who's at the center of this model? It's the missionary. And who gets to see the impact? It's the missionary. And what does the supporter get to see? The missionary, right? So you can see that that is really central visually and practically to this model. So I would like everyone to go into the chat. And if you haven't already, select everyone in the drop down in the chat. Let's answer this question. What might be some of the unintended consequences to this model for both the missionary and the supporter? Would like for you to answer. I'm actually going to wait for people to answer. What might be some of the unintended consequences to this model for both the missionary and supporter? Yeah, we think it all revolves around us. A lot of pressure on the missionary, and that's so true. Supporter doesn't impact, which is so true. Missionary burnout, yeah, when you feel like you're carrying the whole load, for sure, we may forget that God is central to this or practically aren't living it out. Yeah, lots of pressure, performance mindset. Absolutely. And Julie, that is not something I thought of in this model. And and that's something that's coming up, right? So like you said, supporters are not connected to the impact and as a result don't understand how their prayer and financial involvement are making a difference. And by keeping us in the middle, we are blocking our supporters from seeing the impact, the true impact of their involvement. The focus is easily on supporting me or my ministry. Now, let's explore the difference in a traditional support raising model to an impact-focused partnership model. We still have the same pieces, but they are a little bit different. So impact is now the focus. And remember, impact is the difference made in people's lives because of the gospel, whoever it is that we are reaching out to, and however their lives are being changed in both big and small ways. That's impact. So this model begins with impact because that's where we want to focus. Again, another question I'd like you to answer in the chat. What do you think happens when the focus is on impact rather than ourselves? Let's use that comment section, everyone. What do you think happens when the focus is on impact rather than ourselves? Everyone sees the big picture. Love it. People are pointed to God. Excitement. We're working together. Trust shifts from self-supporters to God. Love it. God's story comes in. We're looking at God. More support comes in. Thank you. True partnership is so valuable. Thanks, Terry. Terry Last is on this call. She coached with us a decade ago. Amazing. We don't feel worn out or insufficient. It's not up to us to have the impact. It's up to God to do what he's going to do. So wonderful. I love all of that. I love all of that.
Oh, I like celebration right there. Celebration. We can
Yeah,
celebrate. We become
me too.
thankful.
So let's talk about Um, we've changed the language from next is leader. So we've changed the language from missionary to leader. And the next is from supporter to partner. So let's talk about the word leader. Your role is to set the vision, rally partners around it, and lead your team to focus on impact, reminding them of the purpose, God's work. The term partner implies they bring gifts and abilities. Consider what those are and how they can be utilized by the team. It might be prayer, mentorship for you or people you're ministering to, financial investment, advocacy. Some people on this call may have boards to govern their ministry. So many ways that people can partner. Sometimes you're overseas, you want to send physical mailers. You might need a partner to participate in that to help you do that, although there are companies and organizations that'll do that for you. The leader and the partner are connected through a relationship. Most of the time, it's the relationship you already have, but a lot of times it's a relationship that's just blossoming, right? Or a relationship you don't have yet and you're building. The leader is connected to impact through ministry strategy. Now, the partner connects to impact through communication, the missing link in the traditional model, really. Partners may join based on relationship. People give mainly to people that they know, love, and trust. Or they might give because of the country or people group served, or they might give because they're familiar with the organization. However, a sustainable partnership relies on connecting potential partners to the ministry's impact through clear, inspirational communication, almost always. So um, now when we look at this model, if fundraising is ministry, where do you see ministry happening in this model? Where do you see ministry happening between the partner and impact, impact and partner, between every piece going both ways? Let's go in the comment section and let's see what we come up with. And Julie, whenever we ask this question, there's always new things that come up, which
Yep.
came up in our last question. But where do you see ministry happening in this model? Yes, there's bi-direction with all three. So just let's name some of it. In what ways, let me just say that, in what ways is ministry happening in this model? Julie, could you change that in the notes? I like that question better, actually. In what ways do you see ministry happening in this model? Partner encourages the leader. Absolutely. Trust and reliance on God, sharing stories of impact in those ways. Knowing that people are praying. We minister to partners. Let me open my chat here. We minister to partners and minister to us in prayer and support back and forth. Partners invited into impact, the blessing of giving and receiving.
That's good.
The vision is spread wider. We allow partners to participate in their giving, prayers, and change lives.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the field 15 years ago in Laos. It was not going well. Under a lot of pressure. The team dynamics were less than desirable, and I was a mess. And I called someone on my partnership team that I knew. I knew she woke up every single morning. I knew where in her house she went to pray and read scripture. I knew she would pray for me. And so I called her and I talked to her. And it was such a ministry to me.
Yeah.
So if you allow your partners to minister to you, they will. So
Good
I would
illustration.
I would really encourage you to allow that to happen. Let's move on to our next question. Why do I want new contacts?
So why do I want new contacts? So now that we've been looking to expand our network with this healthy perspective, let's look at reasons for adding new contacts. So first, we want people to partner with us by praying. Russell just gave a great example of that. That relationship happened. He knew where she's sitting, everything. That just comforted him. If we look at historical or even current moments of God, we see without exception that they all started with prayer and fasting. There is power in prayer that doesn't come from anywhere else. So, next is for potential financial partners and advocates. If we need more immediate funding, we might move very quickly to an invitation for partnership. But if we don't have any current needs for funding, we will have this precious time to build a relationship, getting to know one another, and sharing regularly about the ministry. We will have developed a network of people who could be interested in giving if asked in the future. As you well know, it's more than likely that there will be an increase in your budget year after year for pay increases, increased ministry expenses, or inflation. You will probably see some of your financial partners over the course of time drop off, stop giving for some reason or another, or your ministry might even outlive some of your faithful partners. Or there may be unexpected ministry opportunities that require additional funding. Next, another reason is it's a good biblical principle to follow. Ministry is communal and not an isolated effort. Paul tells the Philippian church in chapter 1:5 that believers are to be partners who share their unique gifts. We've talked about their resources, their experiences and struggles, and that strengthens the body of Christ through all that mutual support, prayer, and accountability because we want to see God's plan fulfilled. So, simply put, intentionally growing your contact base is both biblical and strategic for the long term ministry. So, that's why we're going to talk a little bit about where do I find new contacts. So, where do I find new contacts is a common question we hear from missionaries. So, we want to share 3 places to look for new contacts. This is not an exhausted list, but it's a good place that we want to start with. The first is where most missionaries start, and that's at churches. However, we find that most missionaries go to churches looking for potential financial partners who will start giving immediately or get to ask as quickly as possible. But that is not necessarily a bad objective. But remember, fundraising is ministry, and ministry happens in the context of relationships. For now, we are focusing on simply growing our base of contacts. So, assuming you have the opportunity to get in front of either a church or a small group and have only a few minutes to share, here is what we would include. First would be your calling story. It's usually about a 2-minute story in a 2-minute storytelling format. Afterward, you would say one sentence about the gravity of the need or problem you are addressing. Then simply say your mission statement, then a strategy and impact statement, and then a sentence or two that cast vision. Then there is the call to action where you ask for their contact information. So I'm going to share an example, starting with the last line of my 2-minute calling story. I knew then that even if I had to stop pastoring, I would focus my life trying to multiply disciples in hard places by using social media. This is when I decided to start a ministry called Finding God Online. Finding God Online uses digital marketing to accelerate disciple-making movements by identifying spiritual seekers online and connecting them with local believers for face-to-face multiplication. The need is urgent. Global Christian growth has stalled for over a century. Less than 1% of mission resources reach the unreached. And 1 in 4 people worldwide, many of them Muslim, still lack access to the gospel. Through strategic online campaigns and partnerships with underground movements, Finding God Online is already catalyzing Bible study groups, professions of faith and baptisms, and thousands of new churches in hard places. With 5.3 billion people on social media, we have an unprecedented opportunity to help bring the gospel to every tribe, tongue, and nation within our lifetime. We would
Who's
love
talking
to
to you?
share more about what God is doing through this ministry. If you would open your camera app and point it toward the QR code on the screen to share your email address with us, and we'll share with you the miraculous things God is doing.
Um, just
Yes.
hold on there.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, are there slides on that or no?
No.
No, there's not. I'm going to share my screen because it's hard for me to that was a lot to share, and I want to share my screen because um, allow. I'm going to read through that again.
Yeah,
Can you see that, Julie?
I can. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have the calling story, the end of the calling story that Julie said.
Yep.
Right there. This is when I decided to start a ministry called Finding God Online. It's what we call it's our powerful ending line. Then we simply say the mission statement. And you notice how it really flowed. You think, well, that could be really choppy. One sentence here, one sentence there. So then, I decided to start a ministry called Finding God Online. Finding God Online does this, uses digital marketing, etc. Slight pause. The need is urgent. Global Christian growth has stalled for over a century. Less than 1% of mission resources reach the unreached, etc. Then we go to strategy and impact. Through strategic online campaigns, that's our strategy, and partnerships with underground movements, Finding God is already catalyzing Bible studies uh, in hard places, right? So that's our impact. Vision, with 5.3 billion people on social media, we have an unprecedented opportunity to bring the gospel to every tribe, tongue, and nation within our lifetime. That's a big vision. And then our call to action. I would love for Jessica, for us to share this call. Actually, we should put it in the slides and we'll share the slides. But I wouldn't have been able to follow you, Julie, if I hadn't
Right,
had the
right. It
visuals.
was a lot of
So
words.
it was a lot of words, and I thought it was on the screen. So hopefully that helps you guys. I'm going to stop
That's good.
sharing.
So if you're in a small group, ask them to use the contact card you put on their seat before starting. If you are sharing during a service, you can lay contact cards on chairs or pews and or share a code on the slide. A next place you can look for contacts is Facebook or other social media platforms that allow you to send a direct message. Many missionaries use social media for posting, but really only a small percentage of your connections will see any one of your posts. Instead, we suggest you take the direct message and you ask for email addresses. Some of you may have thousands of friends or followers, therefore, you may need to send these messages in waves because if they don't respond the first time, you'll want to follow up at least once. So many of your friends or followers you have on social media are people that you have either spoken with once or not spoken with or seen in a very long time. So we often feel awkward about that. So we usually call that out in the first sentence of a message. We call that sweeping away an objection. For example, you might say, "It's been so long since we've connected. How are you?"
Julie, I didn't put
Hmm.
this in the notes, so I'm going to say it.
Good.
It's
I'm
been
glad.
it's been so long since we've connected. I know we've only met once. I know I only know you through my mom.
Hmm.
Um, calling out the objection. If it's a good friend, you probably have other contact information for them, right? So you're going to be using one of these lines, the sweeping away objection, a lot. So just wanted to point that out. There, you can sweep away whatever objection you have. Um, let's see. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
I love that because it's just very transparent. We're all thinking this. It's just
Right.
very transparent right
Of
up
course.
front. It's genuine. It's
Right.
genuine.
So let's go ahead. You can go ahead and read it.
So you guys can follow along with the slide. It'll help you out. You may not know that and insert your mission statement. When I thought of people that I wanted to know more about this ministry, I thought of you. Insert one sentence about the gravity of the need or problem you are addressing and a sentence or two that casts vision. If you would be interested in letting me share with you more about how God is doing or what God is doing in among this area of service or people group, insert that. I would love to send you a 5-part series to give you an overview of the ministry. Here's the foreshadowing that we're going to be talking about at this 5-part email series. So, what do you think? Is there a good email address for you I could use? I hope you guys could see how you could use this in your direct messaging. Lastly, we suggest you use a name storming tool that gives you ideas of people you may have never thought of. You may already have their email address, or you may need to ask someone if they have it. You can then put together a short email to ask permission to communicate with them about the ministry.
And Jessica, we can provide a name storming tool in our follow-up. Okay, so now you know how to get more contacts, but what's next? So for today's webinar, for our purposes today, we're going to suggest sending a 3 to 5-part email series that helps someone understand the ministry more deeply and inspires them to take action. So you can easily use ChatGPT or Gemini to help you write the series. The first version probably won't be exactly what you're looking for, but you can ask it to make revisions or you can edit it yourself. We're going to include a prompt, pretty complex prompt, in an email after the webinar for you to use that you might find helpful. But I'm going to give you an example of how it works. So I'm going to share my screen. So I have this prompt and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. Like I said, it's pretty in-depth. I'm going to go over to Gemini and I have a fresh chat. And basically I'm saying, I'm going to put the prompt here. I'm saying create this 5-part series based on the attachments that I'm giving you. So I have one attachment. I'm going to add it from my Google Drive. Okay. This is a messaging document that we made with one of our clients with calling, story, mission, vision, need, impact, all the things. But you can upload more than one. So you can upload brochures. You can upload, let's see, you can upload a messaging document like this. You can upload multiple newsletters. I would imagine that you might be able to add a link to a website. I'm not sure if ChatGPT reads websites like that, but you can also you can just like copy and paste all the content of your website in a document. So feel free to give it as much content as you want, right? So I'm just going to give it this one because it's a complete message for us. So I'm going to put insert, and then I'm just going to submit. And it's analyzing, and good. There's always a chance that it's not going to come up with what I want to do live, but we have email number 1 like this, email number 2, 3. So this is basically a 5-part series, right? So you can use something like this. You may want to make modifications to the prompt if you'd like. I think this email series would be great to do in like a newsletter type format if you wanted to.
Can I add, just because they couldn't see what you were copying and pasting, some of the thought he wrote for the formatting like 400, 700 words per email. He talked about avoiding cliches, and then he gave ideas for every one of the emails. So that first one was that story and calling. So it was really cool, all the different prompts that are part of this series.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're
welcome.
Sure. So before you use the prompt, you might want to decide the call to action at the end of the series. You can simply tell them that you would like to communicate with them through your regular monthly newsletter, and invite them to use those newsletters to pray for you and the ministry. I will also say when you create these emails, you go into your email email client like MailChimp or Constant Contact, and you can to create an automated sequence. You're not going to send these individually every time. You can, email one, wait 3 days, or wait 2 days, or you can just do a 5-day, 5-part series. Um, so you want to decide how the purpose and the call to action. So it might be, I'm now going to send you our monthly newsletter. Please pray for the ministry. And in that case, asking permission is not necessary. Alternatively, you may ask them to subscribe to your Epistle account to receive regular updates. We love using Epistle. Jessica, you can put the website in there. It's just epistle.com. And so you send them this 5-part email series and then ask them to sign up for your Epistle account. If that is your call to action, prepare to follow up multiple times for them to sign up. And it's worth it. There's research showing that funding increases when using this particular platform. I would still use email twice yearly for updates, and I would use it for fundraising appeals, or as a communication method to onboard potential financial partners. Those are the things that I may not do through Epistle if I were using that. If you would like to invite someone into a financial partnership, I would format the last email to look like a regular email in plain text. And you can either ask them to consider a one-time specific gift or tell them that you would like to call them in the next few days to see if they would be interested in meeting about becoming a prayer and financial partner. And I say that intentionally. You're not asking them if there's a time that you can call them or anything like that. You're just telling them you're going to call them. Just side note, I think on our website there's a webinar called Turning Year-End Gifts into Long-Term Partnerships, and it would apply to this. If you do ask somebody who hasn't given before to give a one-time gift for a specific reason, as kind of a segue into a longer financial partnership, which is not a bad fundraising strategy. They would give once. I would go watch that webinar on how to move that one-time gift into a monthly partnership. So, yeah, Julie.
Good. Okay, now it's time for some reflection. We've walked you through how partnership development is ministry, why intentionally expanding your network is important, where to find new contacts, and what to say to them. So we hope you feel inspired. We hope you feel equipped. Just remember, growing your network isn't just about meeting a funding goal, it's an opportunity for real ministry. So before we move into question and answer, are we good on time? I'm watching the time.
We're
Yeah.
good on time.
Before we move into question and answer, let's reflect on what we've experienced today because we've covered a lot and you've seen a lot on those slides of details. Stop for a moment and think about it. What is something in this webinar that has been particularly helpful for you? And please put your response in the chat for us all to see.
Yeah, let's do it.
5-part series. Good. Me too.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. We want to do more on AI for sure.
I love that. I love the 5-part series. I just honestly just used it with a client
Oh, really?
to onboard new people into their ministry. Good.
Um,
Suggestions of what to say to people. Yeah.
yeah.
Sharing with churches. Ditto. 5-part series.
Yeah. Perfect. I love seeing all these sweeping away objections.
Good.
It's so simple, and it's just
It is.
it's a really big, honestly, it's a really big deterrent for missionaries not to reach out to somebody.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so it's an easy way.
That's so good about just being honest.
Yeah.
Sweeping egg. Good. Sweeping away.
Yeah. And you can not use Facebook. I mean, probably most of you have it, but if you have Instagram, you can send direct messages through Instagram, whatever social media platform you're using.
Yeah. Just a voice text even.
Oh, Christina, just heard about Epistle. Yeah, go to their website. Take a look at it. It's really great. Yeah, we want you to reflect on this because we want you to think about how you're going to take away, right? What you're going to take away. And before we actually do move into Q&A, I know a lot of you on this call are probably people that we've coached before. And you may not know that as a past client, you can actually come back for as many coaching sessions as you want. You're not limited to the packages that we have for people who haven't been coached by us before. So if you want a session, or if you want two sessions, or if you want monthly accountability for the next 6 months, you can actually do that with Tailored. Or if you're on this webinar and you're thinking, okay, a great reason to have a coach from this webinar is let's revise my messaging. Let's come up with a new messaging document and things that I can use moving forward. My church present, like my 5 sentence church presentation, my my whole messaging document. Maybe you want to create a communication strategy, and maybe develop this 5-part series, right? So you might want to say, okay, I'm going to take a month and meet with a coach weekly to develop all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
you can go actually as a past client or a new client if you'd like to sign up to work with a tailored coach. You can go to our website, just hit sign up for coaching. We just adjusted it so it is helpful for past clients too. So if you're a past client, and if you're not sure about how many sessions you need, you can sign up for a discovery call with me, um, either through that form or I can put it. I'll put it in the chat right now. What my calendar link is. So
I have it handy,
also,
Russell.
what's that?
I have the discovery call link.
Okay. So something else I thought of, if you're overseas right now, and I'll add this to the future when we do this webinar again, is if you're overseas and you want to get, um, if you want to share about your ministry via Zoom in a service, that's a great way to get contacts as well, right? Asking your
Mm-hmm.
partnering churches if you could have 5 minutes just to thank people for their partnership, remind them, and ask for their contact information. You don't have to be in person to do that. So I think we're ready to move on to some Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, if we have any questions that have been
Yeah.
submitted, and if you have questions now, go ahead and submit them, and we'll go from there.
Okay, the first one, Eric Tools, he asked about when you're sharing the calling story and transitioning into mission and vision, Julie. He said you're supposed to do all of that in 2 minutes. Could you clarify that format that we usually coach our clients through?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I
It
can, up to you.
go ahead, Russell. Start if you want to, and if I can add
Yeah,
something.
sure. So we start with an opening line, one sentence that includes who, when, and where. The reason why you have to include all 3 pieces is because it does something that I say, it starts a movie in their mind. They are going to be with you till the end. If you don't have all the pieces, it's much more challenging for them to have a picture in their mind of what's happening. Um, we want to focus on a specific incident, not necessarily a timeline of events that have happened. And we would help you think through, it is possible to give start at a specific event and give context. That's a different type of thing. And then we add details and color to that story. When I'm actually creating the story, I write out my first sentence. I make bullet points of things I want to cover. I'm not memorizing a story. It makes it a little bit harder for me to share it. And it's harder for me to share it as naturally if I'm trying to memorize something. Then we come up with our powerful ending line. And it's just a place that you know where you're going to land and that you know that it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And yeah, it keeps you from keep going and going and going. It keeps you from saying and something at the end like, and so yeah, which is
Yeah.
not powerful, right? So we have the 2-minute calling story, right? And then what Julie read after that should take no more than 60 seconds, right? So you have 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes and it's a very easy way to share and a powerful way to share.
And I would add, I mean, testimonially, I've been raising support for 30 plus years. We've done a lot of 2 minute to 4 minute spots in churches. And some churches that know us, I shorten my calling story and I give a little bit more, but I still follow this format. I've been following this format for years, and it's doable
Yeah.
and it's
All right.
compelling. I shouldn't
Yeah.
say it's just doable.
Yeah.
It's
I get your
compelling.
point.
Sherry Richards asked if you could share your sample AI prompt to help give ideas. It went kind of fast, so I'm not sure if everyone caught exactly what you're putting in, Russell. I don't know if there's a good
Well,
way for us to share that after the webinar.
yeah, we'll put it in a document and
Okay.
attach it to our follow-up email.
Hmm.
Okay.
Because
Um,
that was a lot of thinking,
Oh
Russell.
yeah,
All those prompts.
it's a
Those,
complex prompt. It's like over
yeah.
a page probably.
All right. Emily asked if we could share more about the name storming tool.
Sure. Yeah, we have a tool that we'll attach. I love how our webinars are not just promotional. I love giving you resources. We'll share an attachment. It's a list of potential people you may not have been thinking of. Who does your insurance? Like, you know, who did you use to buy a house last? Who did your parents use to buy a house? Have we thought of those things, right? So it's just kind of what you would think potentially obscure people that you haven't thought of, that you can kind of go down these rabbit trails and come up with 50, 100 new contacts potentially, right? So we'll share that.
Brian asked, why a five-part series? Can that feel like too much?
If you're telling people you're going to send them a 5-part series, I don't think it's an issue. Um, I think for one of the clients, we actually did both. We did a 3-part series and a 5-part series, so we could give them, for some of the people, I think they thought it'd be just more reasonable to do a 3-part series and some a 5. So I really don't think a 5-part series is too much. It's really intentional. I think honestly, it's kind of impressive, right?
and
Yeah,
each email's not very long. It doesn't have to be very long.
right.
It's an intro into I have a client right now that are adding a lot of people. They've already been in ministry for 20 years. So they feel like they have to catch their people up. So all these new people coming in, they're telling their calling story. They're showing themselves as young missionaries in pictures. So they're adding pictures to the series as well.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah. Kind of like that newsletter format. Also, in the prompt, it would be very easy for you to say 200 to 400 words if you wanted to share,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an
Right.
easy change in there.
We have an anonymous question. How does this fit into the new model of fundraising that is like a triangle? Upon first review, it doesn't seem as relational to have an email flow.
Sure, sure. So if you were, again, our last webinar would be great to take a look at. We review, which was turning year-end gifts into long-term partnerships. So a lot of this is actually your first step in a relationship, in building a relationship. It's not relational. It's the start of a relationship. So that's why you want an intentional strategy to onboard new partners. You could add things to this 5-part series, like a phone call after they conclude this email series,
Yeah.
um, or a phone call to pray with them, or to get to know them, to ask if they have any questions. Those types of things. It really is the beginning of a relationship.
Hmm.
Hopefully that helps, but you can ask another question if that doesn't clarify for you.
On that same topic, Russell, Sherry also asked, how do you practically move from a traditional model into a partnership model?
Hmm.
That's a great question, and I would say the easiest step is to begin communicating, right? So what we said was the communication link is the missing link in the traditional model, right? And in that communication link, it it's connected to impact, right? So the easiest way to move to the new model is to start communicating impact, start asking around impact. Those two things, yeah, those two things, and then you begin to start viewing your supporters as partners because you're communicating impact, you're not communicating solely about yourself. So I think moving communication to impact in every way, what God is doing in big and small ways,
Mhm.
um, you know, addressing, sharing the need, sharing the strategy impact, sharing the vision is the easiest way to move to that model. That's a great question.
All right, Lonnie is asking about the contact card. Would it be like a business card or a postcard sized prayer card? Is it the same as a prayer card?
I would say it's the same as a prayer card.
Are there any insights about referrals or working with existing partners to find new partners?
Yeah, there
Great
is.
question.
It's a great question, and it's kind of a complex question. It's like it's a great reason to work with a coach, honestly, because it is a layered strategy. There's a lot to it, including starting with your messaging and either creating new messaging or revising that. But advocacy is different than referrals. We are going for advocacy, which is involving your partner, not all of them, right? We're going to choose 3 to 5. And we are going to actually sit down with each one of those partners and ask them to be advocates. And in that ask, it's basically a normal presentation, or normal conversation around potentially calling, but they probably know you pretty well. But just restating and refreshing the mission, the vision, the need, all of that. They're not living this day to day. You are. So you're like, well, they already know that. Well, they're not living it day to day. They're not thinking about it day to day. So
Mhm.
resharing is wonderful. But the ask instead is financial is, I'm looking for a few of my, cheerleaders, my partners to connect me with just a few people, right? And I was wondering if you'd be willing to do that, and I'd love to help, be a part of that. Is that something you'd be willing to do? So then we move into making a plan for that advocate, whether it's connecting you via email with an email introduction from them, hosting something at their home, setting up a lunch between their contact and you. It could be anything, but am I, I've gone, am I still answering the question, Jessica?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
all, yeah, with advocacy. Yeah.
Right. So it's a
Mhm.
strategy, and a great reason to work with a coach, honestly.
All right, Noah Johnson. You guys have asked some great questions. Okay, would you recommend keeping separate communication channels, such as an epistle update letter, social media accounts, and a mailing list for my personal ministry support and for the larger building project I'm
Mm.
raising funds for? I'm trying to discern whether it is wiser to keep them distinct for clarity and focus or integrated since they're connected to the same overall vision.
Wow.
That is, I can just give you my kind of gut. You can do two things. Julie, I'm going to let you answer after this. Because actually, you just did this, didn't you?
Well,
You
I
just
was
did
just
this
going
with
to
your
say
mission
this
out.
is another reason why coaching's great because there's not an easy
There's
answer
not
to
an
that.
easy answer to
There's
that.
a lot of layers to this. Like all these questions come to mind. Like, how can I answer this question without asking 4 or 5
Well,
questions
why
to
don't you
follow
just
up?
why don't you ask those questions? And so we, they would
Well,
know.
I would ask why does he see it as 2 separate
Yeah,
groups of people? Um, um, is the ministries,
right.
siphoned off? Like, why isn't this just part of your ministry and something to keep everybody involved in? So I guess that's the first question is why do you see it as 2 different? Yes, are they 2 different asks? Yeah,
Hmm.
but why do you see that as two
Yeah.
separate ministries? Yeah.
I think I would also consider, we would probably ask, is your personal support underfunded? That might be a reason to have segment your list into people you're going to invite to begin partnering with you in personal support and people you're going to invite to give to this project, right? So that might be something to consider as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's probably not exactly what you were hoping to hear. Um, but it's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question and valid. And I'm glad you're thinking about that.
Yeah. And I would even look at your timelines too, because that can affect.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the capacity of your network. And oh, good. I'm glad it
Okay.
helped. I feel like we didn't say anything helpful.
Thanks, Noah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
when you start spinning, you're like, who am I talking to?
I know. And we're like,
Are we talking to?
I'm spinning out of control. Where am I going? Okay. Next question, if there is one.
Yep, we have several still. So Bethany is asking, how might the short intro speech you shared about what the calling story mean? How might that look different if you've been on the field for a while?
Sure. Um, it, couple of things. I think a calling story is always relevant for uh, for potential new partners, right? So if you think there are people sitting in the congregation or audience in a small group, I might be inclined to still share that. You could, and Julie, you could help me with, or Jessica, you can help me with this. You could choose a specific incident that happened last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, that got you to this point of where you are in your ministry, right? Um, does that make sense? Either one of you want to expand on
Yeah,
that?
let me jump in on that, Russell. I'm just going to jump in right. Think of
Yeah.
that point right now that's current. In fact, I'm working with someone that's been in ministry for 20 years, and they're thinking they said, "Oh, this is going to make my calling story sound so much more current." So she's going to think about a moment of obedience right now in her life. So she sets the scene in that a first kind of paragraph of her calling story, and then she goes back in time and reviews where God has brought her from
Mhm.
her original calling story to get her to this new point, this new turn
Right.
in the branch. And then at the end of that, she says a zinger of a sentence that says how she's obeying God. And so you
Right.
see this journey of obedience, and it's not chronological. It's
Yeah.
here and now, looking back, how did I get here? And I'm here and now, and I'm doing
Right.
this.
Right. And I want to say a couple of things about that is what Julie and that client are doing. They are focusing on a specific incident, right? With the who, when, and where. We've started a movie in our mind, and then they're going to give context to that, right? And then come back. And don't misconstrue what Julie said as missionary focused because it's a calling story. I think what you're doing is you are rallying in that type of story, you're rallying the people you're talking to saying, you know, this is what God is doing in my life. So you still want to point toward what God is doing, and
Mhm.
particularly is what he's doing in your life. You're not making it me focused because you're sharing about that. And, and then you're sharing what God is doing through those other statements, and you're inviting them to be a part of this with you. So this is what God's done in my life. Here's what's happening, need, mission, impact, strategy, vision, and I want you to be a part of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hopefully that helps. That's great. It's great.
Okay,
I
Josh
love I love
asks,
the moment. I don't know if all of our other coaches do this, but the way you describe moment of obedience is really great for trying to think of what we would call a calling story, right? I
Mhm.
love that. So it takes your traditional calling story, if you've been, it's such a great question. I'm so glad you asked. Takes that in a fresh way, and you're still using a calling story, but not from the very beginning. Okay,
Mhm.
I digress.
okay,
Mhm.
Josh asks if I'm overseas and a church has me shared live over Zoom during a Sunday service, how would I practically collect email addresses from interested people?
Yeah. So in the example that we can send, well, it's going to be in the slides. Because we're going to add it to the slides, Jessica,
Mhm.
that example.
Yes.
In the example, it said, so if you would take your camera and um, focus on the QR code and give your contact information, that's probably what you would do. So technically speaking, the person running the video would switch from video to a QR code. Um, otherwise, you would have somebody at the church
Mhm.
put contact cards actually in the seats or in the pews.
Stuart asks, have you seen this messaging approach needing adjustments based on cultural or the cultural nationality of those you're reaching out to?
That's a great question. So I have trained, not coached, but I've trained and done coaching. I was a part of a group that trained people in more than 50 different countries on almost all the continents. And these are principles, right? So you can contextualize them, but they're all there, right? I mean, the Bible is about what God is doing, right? And so even scripture is about that. So I would say I'm not sure there's a lot of adjustment. I think if you're from that culture, you would naturally make the adjustment within each one of those sections. Um, the invitation and the call to action might look different. I will say this, every culture says you don't ask for money in our culture. The United States, we don't say that. We just say it's really uncomfortable, right? But most cultures and people that have coached, they all say, we don't ask for money in my culture and or talk about money. And I think when you tie to all the people that we've trained have tried this in their own culture and got a positive response. They might have done it differently based on their culture as far as the ask goes, and how you word that. And we have a book, How to Get a Generous Response Almost Every Time You Ask. If you go to our website in the footer, you can find that. And it gives 5 different ways to ask. And you might be able to, you would take one of those. The only one that I know of, there may be 2, which would be, and these are Asian honor shame cultures. It was either South Korea or Japan. It was probably South Korea. I don't think we were coaching anybody from Japan. You actually just leave information with an ask, and that's the most appropriate way. And it's, if when you use the word, there's a question in the chat. How do you tailor this to African American communities? That's again, there's multiple questions to that. So you need to talk with a coach about that. Honestly, I don't think I could cover all of that.
And Russell, I would back you up in saying that the elements are all the same. It doesn't matter what
The
culture,
principles, yeah.
but the need, when we talk about the need, when we talk about impact and strategy, you're gonna say a different need. There are different needs float to the top in every culture. And so if you're wanting them to understand that,
Yeah.
you would change your need. Whoop.
Okay, Eduardo asks, does your coaching teach how to approach people and churches that you've never known before?
Yeah, we just came
Yeah,
up with a specific tool for that. So answer is yes.
yeah.
It'd be, if you're a past client, it'd be a great reason, to come back and, maybe have a few sessions about that. If you're not a past client, love for you to schedule something with me. We can talk through what that will look like.
I know also, Russell, we have a coach who just created with several of our clients,
Yeah.
like cold calling churches or cold, like showing up. Obviously, if you're not there, you can't do it in person, but our coaches are amazing and helping you think through these systems of like, how do we start these relationships? There's so many different ways you can do it depending on your network. So,
you may be able to find our church engagement webinar helpful as a start. It doesn't, it may not talk about cold calls specifically, but we have just made a very specific tool on cold calls.
mm-hmm. Okay, Deidre asks, how do you recommend sharing about impact when the impact is small or slow moving? For example, when it's a lot of relationship building and day to day, but nothing that looks like traditional impact.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of my impact stories is when I was in Laos with a student. and just sharing life with him. And we ended up doing a Bible study with him, and he didn't make any decision, but he did ask a question. I did ask him a question at the end, and I just said, "Hey, what do you think about this study we've done over the last few weeks?" And he said, if this is true, it changes everything.
Mm.
And I just shared that, the mindset shift. It might be just gratitude, somebody being grateful for how you've invested in their lives. Um, I mean, you don't get to decide what God does in somebody's life, but I would just say, ask a question, what have I seen God do? Why am I still doing this? What have I seen God do? Uh, so I guess that's my easiest way to answer that.
Sherry asked, do you have a plan you recommend doing in advance before going home to do support raising? I'm thinking this 5-point email series could be a way to reach out to new people to create the backstory and then line up an in-person meeting once I'm back in the US.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yes.
So we talked about the different calls to action. One of the calls to action, it's not even a call, it's actually not a call to action. And don't get this wrong, because it's very important. If you're coming back to the States or going back to Canada or wherever your home base is, you would just say, "Hey, I'm going to be back in North Carolina in the next few weeks. I would love to talk with you and sit down with you to talk about partnering with this ministry through prayer and finances. And I'll be giving you a call the next few days to see if we can meet." And then you'll do what we call a qualifying call at Tailored. And this is a great reason to sign up with Tailored. Most fundraising coaching and training, when they train you, you go to a meeting and about half the people say yes and half of the people say no to financial partnership. At Tailored, when you work with us, almost 100% of the people you meet with say yes to a partnership. So, did I answer the question, Jessica?
I just want to tell all of you, we had several questions asking about sharing content and Russell's email prompts and AI prompts, all of that. We will share these in a follow-up email after. Okay. The last question, this is a great question. I'm curious if you have examples of how missionaries can explain to partners the value behind using some of their gifted funds to participate in tailored coaching. It's a reality we want to consider soberly, and wondering if there's wording you would recommend or a value statement for that sort of ask.
We should create one, honestly.
Great.
And we have clients do this often.
Yeah, we do, but we've
Yeah.
never provided like an email template. So no, I don't have specific wording, but
But we should.
we should. Thanks for pointing that out.
It was an anonymous attendee, so thank you, whoever.
Yes, thank you. Gracias.
All right. That was it for questions.
Great.
All right.
Okay. Well, we love you all. And thank you for participating today. And thank you for being a part of what God is doing.
Yeah.
So hope you all have a great rest of the week. And you're so welcome. Thank you for saying thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It was
It's our
great to be with
pleasure.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Bye.